Good morning, artists. So we've got this hard edge painting that's been assigned. We're dealing with some color theory. We're dealing with one of the painting techniques. I've given you that assignment to do a hard edge painting inspired by architecture. I took some pictures from around the school, the stairwell, the cafeteria, the ceiling in the commons, one of the hallways. And I'm not making a copy or a painting directly of one of these pictures. I'm looking at the architectural shapes, like these big triangles and the zigzags, maybe these shapes, this shape on the floor, the shapes of the stairs here. And I'm just creating a design inspired by these shapes. So I've done a few thumbnail sketches here. Now, I am not requiring the thumbnail sketches as part of your grade, but I'm strongly encouraging you to make thumbnail sketches so that you can plan and come up with a design that you feel good about, that's going to work and is going to have a good composition. Just to give you some idea here, in my thumbnail sketches, this floor kind of inspired this, and the brick walls over here kind of inspired the borders. It's not a direct copy, but it's inspired by the shapes. In this one here, in the center one, is kind of inspired by these stairs, pieces of the stairs. This is kind of suggestive of the stairwell here. This window comes from the windows in there, so it doesn't all have to be from the same source at the same spot. This is an abstract design, meaning it's based on real life, but it's changed or distorted in some way. Ways that you can abstract things are to change scale, make things bigger or smaller. You can distort things, make them at funky angles. You can change them however you like. And I'm simplifying this too. I'm not making it overly complex for myself. I've got some of the inspiration of the shapes in this, so this kind of combines this area and the windows in the cafeteria and the stairwell in this one. I ended up liking this thumbnail sketch. Another thing I did when I did this, just to think about it, I thought about the balance of dark and light in my composition. There's a Japanese term called notan, N-O-T-A-N, that refers to dark light harmony or a balance of dark and light in artistic composition. So I just kind of loosely shaded in some of the shapes spread throughout to kind of maybe give myself some guidelines about where I might want to use darker colors. Again, I decided I liked this thumbnail best, so I went ahead and sketched it up onto my canvas paper. Actually, this is called Bristol, Bristol board here. And so I drew it on this, and I used a ruler. If you don't have a ruler, you can use a hard edge, the side of a book, anything in the house that's got a straight edge. Doesn't have to be a ruler specifically. But I wanted my shapes to be clean and neat, and wanted to have some clear guidelines for myself. So this was based on that thumbnail sketch. I drew this up, and now, so I've got an abstract interpretation of some architectural features, and this can be based on your home, this could be based on images you find online, but now I'm going to paint it, and I need to pick a color scheme. The choices were monochromatic. Mono means one, chroma means color, so monochromatic means one color, and you could choose any color on the color wheel. So it's one color plus its tints, shades, and tones. If you took your notes, you know that tints are lighter versions of a color. Here are tints. By adding white or mixing with white, you can get these lighter versions of a color. Those are tints. There's white, there's the color. That's how that color wheel works. You don't have to have a color wheel to do this, but shades are made by adding black. So this shows you what color can look like with there's black and there's the color. So shades are dark versions of a color. And the amount of black you add, the amount of color you use changes the value. So those tint shades and tones are made two ways. One is by adding gray, and this doesn't have what it looks like by adding gray. Does this? No. Shades are made by adding gray or by adding the color's complement. I can look at that here. Now complements are colors that are on opposite sides of the color wheel, orange and blue. So here's orange, and if I come over here and I line up the blue to it, that shows you get this grayish color. So that's a tone as well. Mixing complements, colors that are on opposite sides of the color wheel, creates tones as well. So add gray or add the colors complement. Yellow, if you add violet to yellow, I don't have violet here, so let's add yellow to violet. Here's the violet down here. And if I add yellow to violet, that's the color, kind of a warmish gray, a warmer gray. That blue to orange was kind of a cooler gray. Red to green is a complement, and you see that's a much more neutral gray. That's one of the most neutral kind of cool grays you can get, is red and green together. You can mix some good blacks with different kinds of reds and greens. So that's what this color wheel kind of helps you do. So we want to use tint, shades, and tones, and you've got to use some of each. There needs to be at least 5 different values, and tint, shades, and tones need to be included, and you need to pick your color scheme. Again, the color scheme I talked about monochromatic. So monochromatic is one color plus its tint, shades, and tones. Complementary, this shows complementary, so complementary colors, so I could use all the tint, shades, and tones of blue plus all the tint, shades, and tones of orange if I wanted to do a complementary color scheme. Or I could do an analogous color scheme, and analogous means colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So all of these colors are available in their tint, shades, and tones if I did analogous. So think about, and you should have a color wheel that you shaded on the notes from the notes document that we did. So you need to work in a specific color scheme, create tint, shades, and tones, and have at least 5 different value changes, 5 different levels of dark and light. I'm going to start with my lightest colors first. And in my thumbnail here, I'm going to bring this back out, kind of remind myself of where I plan to do my darkest areas and lightest areas. I think I'm going to make this background my lightest area, and I think I want to make my color scheme, I think I'm going to do complementary blue and orange. I like those colors. So there's blues and orange and all their tint, shades, and tones. So that's the area I'm going to work in. I think I want to make this background, cool colors recede and warm colors come forward. So I think I'm going to make this big shape in the background here a tint of blue. So I'm going to take some white here, because we make a tint, we want to start with white and then add color to it. This is called a palette knife here. And I had pulled my colors out of here first, because I don't want to cross-contaminate the colors and get everything all muddy. So I'll clean that. I'll take a little bit of blue to put into this. So now I have a tint of blue, a light version of blue. And I think I want that a little bit lighter. If you don't have a palette knife, that's okay. You can just do this with your brush. Palette knives are good because you can kind of scrape up the paint, move it around, and mixes the color pretty easily. You can kind of, I get a little OCD sometimes about mixing my paint. It's kind of fun. So I'm going to get a little more white here and add this. And I want to tone down my blue a little bit. So I'm going to add a touch of the complement, and the complement of blue is orange. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to mix. I've got red and yellow here. I didn't have orange in my kit, but I'm going to mix just a tiny bit of red and some yellow here to make an orange. So there's a decent, half decent little orange there. And now I'm going to take just a little bit of this orange, because I don't want to turn it down dramatically. I want to tone it down just a little bit. And I'm going to mix all of that together. And now I've made a tone. It's a tint and a tone. It's a toned tint. So now this is a light version of a dulled down or grayed down blue. So Got a color to work with there. And I'm going to use this. And it's good to make sure that you mix enough color to do what you intend to do before you do it, so you don't have to try to go back and perfectly match a color if you didn't have enough to start with. That can get challenging. Especially since I've mentioned before, acrylic colors dry 10 to 20% darker than they look when they're wet. So if you think you want really light values, make sure you start by mixing really light values, even lighter than you think you need. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to load my brush, and so that means I kind of push it into the paint, really make sure I get enough paint in there, a little bit extra. And I'm going to start at the edges first, and I'm going to line along my edge. And it's okay if your lines touch or slightly overlap your lines because you don't want them showing in the end. So I'm trying to make some smooth strokes here. And you're not going to get smooth strokes if you use just an itty bitty little bit amount of paint and don't, really put the paint on there. You want some paint to work with. So I can use kind of the corner of my brush and pull. When it starts to run out of paint, I can just come to the other side there. Spread that around. Now when it starts getting really thin like that, you're not going to get good coverage by just trying to spread it more and more and hope that it's enough. You need to get some paint. So you're going to need to mix up some paint for your assignment. Now your canvas paper is not as big as this piece that I'm using here. I might not have mixed enough paint myself. I'm using what's called Bristol board. This kind of sucks up the water that's in the paint because at the base of acrylic, the vehicle it's called, used to make acrylic paint is water. It's a water-based paint. And so this Bristol board is sucking it up as I paint, using the side of the brush, trying to make smooth strokes. So your canvas paper will resist it a little bit more, so your paint should flow probably a little better than I'm doing on this. I gave you guys all the canvas paper I had, so I didn't have any left for me to demonstrate with, so I ended up using a different material that I had in the classroom. I put some tape around the edges underneath, and this is artist tape. Don't just use regular masking tape. Artist tape peels off pretty easily, so it's not going to tear or mess up my paper. You can just put some newspaper under your work when you work, but when you paint, make sure you actually go off and over the edge. We don't want to leave blank areas around the edge or have it look all wispy. Because you were kind of afraid of the edge for some reason. That happens with students. So make sure that you actually go off the edge when you paint. And you can just put some newspaper underneath where you're working. Or some other drop cloth, whatever works, whatever you have on hand. Acrylic paint cleans up real easily off of plates, other ceramics, other plastics. After it dries, it washes off and or peels off pretty easily. So I use the edge of my brush to kind of help shape. So when I'm painting, I'm really paying attention to what I'm doing at these edges here. And I can use the corner or the side of the brush to kind of control my strokes. Now I know I didn't send paintbrushes home for everyone because I had a limited budget and I just didn't have the money to also buy brushes with everything else. I wish I did. You can get brushes at the dollar store. Relatively cheap, halfway decent brushes. professional brushes get really expensive. You know, if this was this is a middle grade, so this brush was probably, I don't know, probably somewhere between $3 and $5, which is cheap for a brush, but this is a decent brush. And professional grade brushes, you're looking at $15 to $30 a brush. And that's, you know, one reason why we're in class and why us art teachers are always harping on you guys to wash your brushes and take care of them and put them away properly, not leave them sitting bristle side down in the water, because it's expensive to replace these and they're easy to ruin. Now, if you take care of them, they can last you a lifetime. You know, the good quality brushes will. The more expensive brushes are worth the expense if you are somebody who paints a lot and knows how to take care of your equipment. It will last you a lifetime. It'll be a worthwhile investment. Now, if you don't have a brush, you haven't gone to the dollar store and you're chomping at the bit to get this done, which hopefully you are, because, you know, let's keep up with our work. Then you want to maybe see if mom's willing to part with a makeup brush. Before you start using the makeup brush, wash it with some soap and water and dry it. Get any oil out that's in it, or other makeup residue or whatever. And that's how you wash your brush when you're done in general. It's just some soap and water. You can even take like a regular bar of soap or some dish soap and just put the soap in your hand and kind of scrub the brush, rinse it thoroughly. Acrylic paint, the vehicle, like I said, is water, but it's also the binder, it's called, the glue that kind of holds the paint to what you paint things on, is what the acrylic is. And acrylic is basically liquid plastic. So if you don't clean your brush when you're done painting and it dries on your brush, you have just let liquid plastic dry into your bristles, and that can destroy your brush and make you not able to use it anymore. And I didn't mix enough paint, so I didn't even do what I warned you guys of. But that's okay. I've got some clean edges here. I'm going to come in, I'll mix a little bit more of this, and I'll show you guys my finished piece now, but I'm not going to paint the whole thing on the video. But here's a tint and a tone. Next I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do an even lighter tint in a couple spots. Maybe over here and over here, and maybe here. I'm going to do an even lighter tint. So I'm going to get some more white. Pull out some more white. Boop. And maybe I'll make this lighter tint with the orange. So warmer colors come forward. So when I say come forward, it means, it kind of pops out, it kind of stands out. And look at this tint of orange, and I hold it against this tint and tone of blue, and it really stands out more. And this is a this is unambiguously a tint here. That's a much lighter color. I'm going to rinse off my brush. Always use a clean brush when you change colors so things don't get muddy. Keep paper towels handy. And this brush is called a filbert. It's got a round edge. A flat brush doesn't have a round edge. It's just straight across, kind of a rectangular shape, squared off at the end. A squared off brush is better for this assignment, but I couldn't find a really good square brush for, let's do this over here first. I couldn't find a really good square brush in the classroom. A lot of my brushes have up and walked away, and I'm not too pleased about that, but that kind of happens sometimes. So again, don't be afraid to go over the edge of your pencil line or another color. I'll show you the other color. And this color almost isn't too different than the white of the background, but it is much warmer. Look how it kind of glows. And you'll see over here, light next to light, there's not much contrast. But when I come over here to do it, and you'll see all of a sudden this blue around the light is going to look even darker. And this is going to look even brighter. And again, don't be afraid to let the edges of two different colors touch. Do your best to control it. But don't be, and just drag it to make a clean edge. It takes some practice. It's harder to do with a filbert than a flat brush. So there's a, what else did I say? I was going to do one over here. I want all of your colors to be mixed colors to some degree. So I've still got some of that white that white orange I can work with. I'm going to do a big jump here. I'm going to make, let's say, a little bit of a tone of orange. I've still got this orange to work with. I'm going to put a dot of blue in it, and that's going to tone this down and still be a nice mixed color to work with. Not a lot of color there, but let's see. I'm going to put this right here so you can see some of the contrast. Again, don't be afraid to let the colors touch at the edge or even overlap a little bit. Try to, now if you're just having to make do with Q-tips or something, not going to hold it against you if you can't get super smooth applications of the paint. Just, you know, it is what it is under these circumstances. But do your best, and you know, with the tools you have available, make something you're proud of. I'm going to mix up a little bit more orange here. More of a red orange, grab a little more yellow. Now I'm kind of cross-contaminating this paint that I've pulled out and put on my palette, but once it's on your palette, you can do that if you want. And I'm going to make this a little lighter by grabbing some white. Just don't cross-contaminate the stuff in your bottles so that you always have good, clean paint to work with. Make this a little bit brighter. There we go. And just play with mixing the colors. You know, make some colors that look cool. Filling in these spots. I'll finish this on my own time outside the video, and then come back and I'll post a picture of it or add it to the media album that's in Schoology, where I've asked you guys to submit your work. And I'll end up having to paint that. So in the end, every single shape on this page needs to be painted. Top to bottom, left to right, all of it needs to be done. So that's what I got for you right now. Good luck, have fun, get into it, put some music on, chill out, and just enjoy the art of painting. Peace.